Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for joining me today for a video on one of my two collecting focuses for the upcoming year 2024. As I do at the end of every calendar year, spent some time this December kind of thinking over how I wanted to narrow my collecting focus, which I say with a grin on my face, or how I want to improve or better my collection is probably more accurate in the coming year. And in the last couple of years, I've done kind of some specific lists of cards that I wanted to target. Like I did a 50 for 2023 project this year of 50 singles. Next year, I have two ideas that are a little more open-ended and vague, but they're also specific in a sense. And in today's video, I'm going to cover the first of those two, and that is I am going to focus on building out an awesome collection to pay tribute to Negro Leagues baseball. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm doing this, which we're going to get into. And there's some amazing cards that can be had on this front, which I'm also going to briefly cover on today. But then this is going to be a topic that I return to over and over in the calendar year 2024 as I grow the collection and focus on it and show off my pickups and learn more and try to share some of that knowledge with the community. So why did I go down this road? I want this era of baseball and these players who weren't able to play in the major leagues to be better represented in my collection. I've always viewed my collection as almost like a history of the sport of baseball on cardboard. And to me, that history is very incomplete if I'm not representing the Negro League players, just because they didn't have a lot of cards or really any or hardly any produced during their playing career, doesn't mean that they don't deserve representation in my collection. And, collecting cards is one of the ways that I learn about the sports that I love as well. And so I've recognized that not only is my collection lacking, when it comes to Negro League representation, so is my knowledge. I know a lot about Major League Baseball from the early days all the way up to present. When I was a kid growing up, I was rabid. Any book I could get my hands on for my birthday or Christmas or the local library, every card I got would study the back of it. Anything I could do to learn more about the game in the pre-internet era. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of information or cards or anything else available back then about these guys. So, I could get cards like these. Let's get into showing off some cards while I talk. When I was a kid, I had cards like these in my collection. These are a couple of the only ones I can think of to feature Negro League players. These came out, I think, around 1980. So I might have had these in my box as a kid, but I certainly didn't understand the importance of guys like Buck Leonard or Cool Papa Bell here. I just didn't. I didn't know any better. And when I got back in as an adult, about 15 years ago, I certainly learned more than I did the first time around. I learned a lot about bridge players, of course, like Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby, pictured on this great card together. But I didn't really learn much about the Negro Leagues themselves pre-integration. I just didn't. It's not a topic I've ever delved into. But the more I thought it over in my head, and there were a couple cards that came out this last year that really got me on this track. But once I was on the track and really started thinking it over, the more I just became obsessive over it, and it's just something I want to dive in and learn as much about as I possibly can. I want to learn more about it in a historical sense, and I want to represent it better in my overall baseball card collection. So I'm going to do that in a couple of ways. So in the historical sense, I'm getting some books, some good old-fashioned books, so this is going to be hard to fit in frame, but here's one I picked up, Only the Ball Was White. And I just learned of this in the last few months. Here's a look at the side. This is a really nice, leather-bound copy that I found by Robert Peterson online. It's gently used, a little bit of scuffing, so I was able to get this for I think $25, something like that. Really nice, gilded pages and bookmark and all that. But anyway, this has many chapters, and each one goes into maybe a different player or a different team or a different era of the Negro Leagues or, a series of anecdotal stories or things like that. It's just a really cool way for me to dive in, sit on the couch at night, make myself a nice hot coffee, and then just sit there and kind of soak up the information on these players, learn everything that I can. And as I'm reading and learning these players, I'm also looking around at what's out there or isn't out there in some cases for cards of these guys. So it's starting there for me with the baseball knowledge, but it's spilling over into cards. And what's really great is, unlike when I was a kid, and these were kind of some of your only options for Negro League players being represented on cards, the modern manufacturers, while they're not doing the greatest job ever, and I'd love to see them do more, and that's something I'll talk about in future videos, they're certainly doing more to get the Negro League some representation than they were 30 years ago when I was collecting. And I have a few high-level examples of that I'll share today. I'm not going to go in-depth on any of these because, again, I'm planning this to be a long-running series of videos where I go down all different rabbit holes related to these players. But for today, at a high level, what are some examples of ways that I'm collecting these guys for this project? There's really very few, if any, certainly really not any affordable playing era Negro Leagues cards. There really are very few, period, because not being represented or respected in the baseball scene the way they should have been, they weren't respected or represented by the trading card companies in turn. So very little out there. But if you get into recent post-playing era stuff, there's been some pretty neat stuff that's come out here, my second go-round in the hobby. And here's an example. 2006, the first Allen and Ginter set, they put Josh Gibson on the checklist. How awesome is that? This is the mini, so it's got that tobacco feel to it. You know, looks like you could be convinced maybe if you were not a knowledgeable collector that this was a turn of the century card in really good shape or something like that. So it has the right look and feel. This one's an old planter A&G back. But how cool is that? So Allen and Ginter in that series of sets over the last, 15, 20 years since that's been out, they have represented multiple Negro League players. And not only that, but in their Negro League uniforms with the teams denoted and everything. So really proper Negro League baseball cards. And I've got a whole stack. I'm not going to go through these because, again, this will be a greater detail in a future video. But I've been vacuuming these things up on like Sport Lots and ComC, all these guys that were Negro League players that did get included on the various Allen and Ginter checklists over the years. Soaking these up. And these are going to go into the collection or the project for 2024 as well. More to come on that. And then, I'm going to get into some newer stuff that's come out just in the last couple of years. So, this past year in 2023, this is a card I'm huge on, and there'll be plenty more on this covered. But Panini, due to their expired agreement or the issues they had with their Major League Baseball Players Association agreement, they're desperate to include some retired stars on their checklist for their products in 2023. And as you can see by this one, which was sent to me by my buddy Dylan at Double D Vintage Baseball Cards recently, they did include some Negro League players in their 2023 sets, which is awesome. So whereas in 1980, my only option to collect a Buck Leonard card, or even in 1990, was pretty much this. Here in 2023, I have a Buck Leonard that looks like this. Check that out of Panini Prism, an actual Homestead Grays Negro League Prism card. This blew my mind when I found out about this. There's more to come on this and some other cards from this set, but how amazing is that? The Homestead Grays on Panini Prism. I know it's a simple thing, but job well done by Panini, when they had to dip into the retired players well. Desperate circumstances. I think that was a genius way to fill out some of these checklists and get some better representation for these guys on modern cards, which I really don't see Topps doing a whole lot of outside of Allen and Ginter. There are examples, and here's one of them, although I really should credit the artist here more than Topps. A rare pickup for me. I got this one in just within the past week. Don't really buy many of these project cards, but this one I was perfect for this project. This is the F. Negro League Legends from Project 70, done on the 1972 Topps design. Larry Doby, Buck O'Neil, Monty Irvin, and Roy Campanella. And this is a good representation of what I want to do with this collection because it includes, Buck O'Neil, but also includes bridge players like Larry Doby, Monty Irvin, and Roy Campanella, who also played significantly in the major leagues. And I'm going to include those guys in the collection too. So here's another example of how I can expand and get creative. Just got this one in the mail. George Crow. He played in the Negro Leagues and was a bridge player, just like Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby. And this is his Topps Heritage buyback of his 1961 Topps card. So I can get playing era cards of bridge players to put into the collection, and I'll be doing that. I can also find variations. For me as a buyback collector, this is a perfect fit for this project. So that's, kind of a bunch of examples of what I'll be getting to over the course of the year. Really wanted to just cover the overall theme. I'm so excited and passionate about getting into this and learning more about this really rich history, baseball history. There's not a lot of stats available. It's going to be very different from researching Major League Baseball, where you just kind of go to Baseball Reference or you can look at things season by season. And across eras. It's a lot more just based on stories and legend and things like that. I think it's fascinating. I have a couple other books on the way. I have more great cards on the way. I'll be doing videos throughout the year on, individual sets and individual players and player runs maybe. And I have a couple that are, the kids would call bangers in this collection that I've already gotten a jump start on. And it's going to be really fun. So my plan is to fill an entire Z folio, which holds 360 cards, for those who don't use them, with a tribute to the Negro Leagues collection. And it's going to include, all the types of cards that you see behind you, modern Negro Leagues cards, bridge players on their playing era MLB cards, throwback cards from Stadium Club, and anything else I can find and get my hands on that's unique or just would serve well to help me learn more about this era and help my collection be a more well-rounded representation of actual baseball history. So that's a wrap. I'm at 11 minutes already, trying to keep these videos a little bit shorter, but I'm really passionate about this one. It's kind of rejuvenating my hobby energy. Not that I need that desperately, but it's giving me a renewed passion for the hobby heading into 2024. Certainly hope you'll join me on as many of the episodes as possible throughout the year. And in the meantime, I appreciate all your support. Hope everyone has a happy holiday season and keep on enjoying the hobby. See ya.